Well, welcome to the Missions Book Podcast, where we talk about authors and their important books related to missions. And today I'm excited to welcome Virgil Tanner, who has an extensive missions background, and he's also a spiritual director and the author of a new book called Soul Tending: Leadership for Strategic Flourishing. So Virgil, welcome. I'm happy to have you here today. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and before we get started into the book?
Sure, yeah. I'm married. We've been married 25 years next week. I got 5 kids, from 21 down to 3, which is quite a spread and keeps us confused most of the time. I grew up in Detroit. Educational background is pre-medical biology, then a master's in religion, a master's in education, and I'm completing a doctorate in organizational leadership and spiritual formation. Yeah, so we were 9 years in Nashville pastoring, 8 years in Central Asia leading a disciple-making team and a partnership of other organizations in a post-Soviet, large post-Soviet Muslim city. And then 5 years in Spain in organizational leadership, overseeing our sending agencies workers in Muslim contexts globally. 3 years ago, moved back to the States in order to make ourselves more available to other communities.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your book, Soul Tending. What inspired you to write this book?
When we moved from Central Asia to Spain, it was in order to start a new team that was overseeing these workers in limited access environments, largely limited access environments. And we asked this question: what's the single most strategic input we could make to see unengaged Muslim peoples engaged with the good news that Jesus, in fact, loved them? And after lots and lots of research, it became clear pretty quickly we need to do something about attrition. Sometimes when people read my stuff or hear me speak, they think that I'm member care, but I'm not. I'm strategic mission leadership, right? We needed to do something about attrition because 5 out of every 10 workers that are mobilized to any field go home in the first 5 years, and 8 out of 10 workers that go to limited access environments go home in the first 5 years. That's an untenable strategic push, right? So as we started to look at what we could do about attrition, it became pretty clear that we needed to move agency for how well are we, from the member care pros who are awesome but are all drowning in need, and move that agency back to the worker. And to do that, we would need to compensate for gaps in their own competencies, their ability to accurately assess their wellness, to make meaningful investments in their wellness, and then to lead one another to be well. So we trained our people in 2019 on a simple platform called 5D Thrive that we developed. And they got like real strong, real fast, right? Like it was really surprising how well they became and how much they began to flourish. So it became pretty clear to us that we needed to lean a little bit more heavily into this, but we were all locked down. So the question was, how can we make this more available to more people while we're in lockdown? Because we were in Spain in 2021, like rolling lockdowns. You never know when you can travel. Airport's been closed for a year. So that's what started the writing. But the Thrive portion of the book is just the thriving, the anti-fragility, the how to be well in a chaotic environment. That's only the first part of the book. There are 2 more levels to this tree, right? And the top level is that what actually came next. The organization needed some help thinking about succession and organic leader development, because inorganic leader development just doesn't work. So we began to skunkworks that, and that's what kind of led to the crown of the tree, the how do we actually become who we really are in real life, right? In a way that's good news for the people around us. And it turns out that when you're really strong, you can do good work, and that good work is the source, it's the fodder for development. So that led to the middle piece, which is actually the last of the 3 to develop. And as we were doing this actual work in the field, this is a field forged approach, right? As we're doing this work, like we're recording what we're learning, and that's what it's a compilation of all of those learnings and experiments that gave rise to the book.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool how it sounds like your experiences on the field led directly into this book, and it was kind of a interactive process of like learning and also meeting those needs. So that's really interesting. Can you explain to our listeners what soul tending means? That's the main title of your book. How do you see soul tending and its use in believers' lives?
The Hebrew word for soul is nephesh, and it doesn't mean your inner world. It means your whole life, your whole self, your complete, integrated, multifactorial, multi-system you. If a Hebrew were to be walking down the street and see a carcass on the side of the road, like a dead camel, they would say that's a dead nefesh, that's a dead soul. Like your body is an integral part of your soul. Your soul isn't the ghost that lives inside the shell, right? So that's why we use the word soul. It's actually really important to us to think about a holistic and completely integrated approach to living wisely as a human being, as an imager of God. The tending piece comes from our observations that a lot of Christian leadership literature, I'm not taking a shot at anyone at all, but a lot in aggregate of Christian leadership literature is business literature baptized. And business is good. I like business. Business is great. It makes things go. But managing tasks and leading people aren't the same thing. And people aren't just units of productivity. They're imagers of their maker, right? So when I'm approaching a human being that I'm leading, I'm aware that someone made them before they got to me, and has been stewarding a story of theirs for a long time. And long after I'm done interacting with them at all, their story will continue. And I'm just part of this for a moment. I'm a steward of the moments that I have with this person that I'm leading. And so I want to tend that person and help that person bring the fullness of who they are into the world and into their work, because I actually think that the messenger is the message. A diminished messenger is a distorted message. So I want to tend to that messenger the way a gardener tends to a crop or a plant, the way an arborist tends to a tree. I want to help that person become the full version of who they are, because I know missiologically that's going to have the largest impact over the long run, and because that person by themselves, even if they have no missiological impact, is worth it. So I think about leadership as soul tending.
Wow.
Did that answer your question, or did I just run around the tree?
Yeah, no, that answered it. Yeah, so you're really offering an alternative model of leadership, an alternative from the business model that's so common.
We're trying to cultivate a vivid alternate imagination of leading, because servant leadership isn't just leading like everyone else leads and then being the person who throws the paper plates away at the end and calling yourself a servant. If I don't know how to make my power available to you, then my power is not good news for you. It's bad news that I have more power than you. Servant leadership is making my power good news to you. And that's a different frame.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you see soul tending speaking to those in leadership or ministry who care for others often, but can neglect themselves or their inner life?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The way the book is written, I'm realizing I actually need to talk about like the book and not just how I think about this. The way the book is written, I'm aware that when this book comes to people, they may or may not have a supervisor or someone with more power than them who wants to lead them this way. And what often happens is people will say, well, my leader doesn't lead me this way, so I'm a victim of my circumstance. But you can lead yourself this way. You can steward yourself this way. So that's the first thing I would say is like we all always have the option of being the leader we wish we had, right? Now, what often happens with leaders in missional spaces, like we are highly motivated to see to the well-being of the other. If we're very task-oriented missional people, we'll run our own people over to see to the well-being of the lost or the perishing or the trafficked or the marginalized. If we're particularly compassionate version of that leader, we'll run ourselves over to see these people, our team, thrive, but we won't look after ourselves. There's a handful of things I would say to that. One is the messenger is the message. So if you tell people that it's important to tend to themselves the way Jesus does, and then you do not, your inconsistency is very confusing, and people will resolve the confusion by following what you do and not what you say. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I would say is Jesus is standing toward you compassionately. The synoptic gospels are very clear about this. Jesus takes a compassionate stance toward you. And if you are not taking a compassionate stance toward you, one of you is wrong, and it's probably not Jesus. You know, The basement level foundational definition of what it means to follow Jesus is to let Jesus tell you who you are and to learn to steward yourself the way Jesus stewards you. And if you insist on being disparate from Jesus in the way you steward yourself, the way you think about your worth and the way you look after you, your discipleship is fractured from the very bottom. Your people that you're leading, they need you to live like Jesus loves you, or the rest of your message to them and then through them into the world is inconsistent. And people will always believe what you do over what you say.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's I feel like it's very rare to talk about leadership, like starting the conversation with looking at yourself and how you view yourself through Jesus's eyes. So that sounds like a really powerful place to start.
It's counterintuitive, right? Until so we got beat up in a hard place. We were there a long time and it was hard. I became a spiritual director. So like this wedding of the apostolic and the contemplative, of the missional and the mystic, I think should be normative, but it is actually odd to start from the inside out,
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your book is structured around what you call the one tree approach. Could you explain what that means and why you chose that as the organizing framework? You've kind of already alluded to it a little bit in the beginning, but I'd love for our readers to hear a little more about that.
Okay. So why I chose it as the organizing framework. So I like trees. And I like, I'm a teacher, right, in my bones. And so making complex things simple is the teacher's task, right? But also when I was writing this, the book is dedicated to my arbolita, my little tree. My wife had just been through a hellish breakdown, like an internal breakdown, and was relearning what it was to be herself. And it was in the context of that relearning that we learned actually a lot of the stuff that became the bottom part, the roots of the tree. And she was working with an image of herself as a little tree. So it's actually my deep crush on my wife that provoked the selection. Yeah. So I come from a martial arts background, and there are three levels in a fight. There's the ground game where you have to be able to grapple and like it's the guys rolling around the floor trying to choke each other out. There's the stand-up game where they're trying to knock each other out. And then there's the transition game, the game in the middle. And that's where the fight is always won or lost, right? It's the judo, the wrestling, the how do I get this guy who's standing up on the ground? Every fighter is a natural at one of those and has to learn the others. And if they don't learn the others, they will never be the fighter that they could be. And I know that I'm mixing metaphors, trees and fighters, but trees have three levels too. And one of the things I've noticed is that leaders are naturals at something. They're either naturals at taking care of their people, or they're naturals at getting stuff done, or more rarely, they're naturals at developing the people around them, right? The roots, the bowl, and the crown. But if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be able to do all three of those things at a minimum level of proficiency. And you have to be able to connect them all in one story. Leaders are storytellers, gardeners, and architects. We have to be able to make the life flow up and out into the world, up from the roots and out into the world in a coherent story. And if we can't do that, people's lives get janky. The people we lead, their lives get janky. So the tree provides five, a root system is complex enough to give us 5 dimensions for thriving. The bowl is all about integration and being one thing, right? So four integrations for work. And then 3 poieses, 3 ways of becoming for development. The tree provided an adequate structure for people with all different kinds of leadership backgrounds and different leadership come-froms, and dare I say leadership trauma, to be able to stop echoing how they were led well or badly and decide how they're going to lead in a coherent way that whole organizations could adopt and use to drive culture change. Culture change only happens when leadership behaviors change consistently across all the levels of the organization. And if we can provide a coherent frame for leadership, then culture change becomes possible in mission agencies and denominations and kingdom businesses that are trying to do good and beautiful things in the world.
Wow.
That answer was probably too long, Maddie. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You asked a pretty dense question to a guy who likes to talk about it. Sorry about that.
No, I do love the concrete imagery of the tree and how that all fits together. It's really, I think it will be really helpful for readers.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
So, who do you see as the ideal reader for this book? And what do you hope they will gain from reading Soul Tending?
We've been doing this in trainings for people for a while now. The book is not coming before the trainings, it's following the trainings. We're seeing utility in a lot of diverse communities, cross-cultural workers, denominations, pastors, nonprofits, kind of compassion work, refugees, trafficked persons, but even like healthcare organizations are approaching us now asking for help with their mitigating burnout for doctors. So I tend to look at it and say, well, it's for everybody, but the person that I was writing it for when I was writing it was the middle level and maybe upper level, especially the middle level, but maybe just above and just below, the team leader, the regional leader, kind of the VP of strategy and operations, the people who are trying to lead people who are far away and need a coherent way to inhabit those 1-hour Zooms that they get once a month, who want to know how to become high touch, low control leaders. Andy Crouch talks about power this way in his book, Playing God. He says power is for flourishing. Power is not bad news. It's possible to use power in a way that leads to the flourishing of people. So my ideal reader is a mission leader who is trying to see their people flourish in a coherent and complete kind of way for the well-being of the unengaged and the unreached. But lots of other people should also read my book.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, Virgil, thank you so much for walking us through your book today and the inspiration behind it. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait for people to get their hands on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.